another fantastic episode of The Creative Consultants. I am Trudi, your Chief Communication Consultant.
I'm Matt, Chief Content Consultant.
And today, normally we invite a guest in to apply to become part of the consultancy. Yeah. But today we are almost applying to be part of her consultancy or her world as such. We are joined by the wonderful, the fabulous Connie Boglis. Connie, welcome to our fantastic show.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Let me explain who Connie is. She is this is a long list of accomplishments: an author, an advocate, a counsellor, you have an OAM, you are an all-round top lady. Have I missed anything out? An avid traveller and a highly creative woman. So welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Very embarrassing when I get the title. I think at the end of the day, just Connie.
Just Connie.
Just Connie.
It's just Connie.
Just Connie with a lot of passions in a lot of places.
And a lot of letters. I have to keep, in my phone, I have to keep changing, adding more letters at the beginning and then the end.
It's so embarrassing. Mum just calls me alphabet. It's so embarrassing.
That's great. Do you have to ever find yourself, you have to write them all out, or is it pretty easy to just be like Connie Boglis and then that's?
Look, it just depends on what it's about. If it's an email to friend, family, or, something just in my life, in my zone, it's just Connie. Yeah. If it has to be formal, I'll put it out there, but it's still always awkward. Learning to adapt.
Do you have to do CR, Connie, CR, OAM? What's the order?
Counsellor, Connie Boglis, OAM in capital.
OAM in capital. Okay. But you are a counsellor as well, not just a political counsellor, but
I've been a counsel law for 20 years. Now I'm a counsellor. So it's unbelievable that, mental health, now politics combined, two complete different ends of the spectrum, yet just a few words in separation.
Amazing, huh? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
But hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. We've got a quote, as always, as customary.
Yes, I heard about this quote and I did see a few episodes.
Okay, good.
We've got a fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Already given 5-star reviews, thanks.
This one is not necessarily about politics, but it is by a great politician, Nelson Mandela. He said, hang on, I have to get it a little bit larger because I did bring my glasses.
I did see Spy. I was like, that is pretty small.
Yeah. If you want the cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel they are important. And you do that by being genuine and humble.
I love that.
Which I feel like we've already seen today. So tell us, we're here today to talk about creativity.
Yes.
In what you do. Yes.
Not many people would think that there's creativity in politics. So, yes, I see the angle you're going there, Trudi. And when you first pursued me to have this conversation, it did take me a minute to combine the two. But I think, my background and working with people and being an advocate in the space of those who are most marginalised in our society really leans into this advocacy piece naturally from the ground. So I think for me, I don't think I saw it back in my work. I don't think it was something that I saw that was in my future. I never had political aspirations, but I think I just fell into it because the passion was there, the drive was there, and there's always been creativity in my work. Whether it was applying for a tender at a local non-for-profit that I was the team leader at, and I noticed that kids weren't necessarily, having their 3 meals a day, but wanting to teach them about healthy eating through a local community grant, or getting some laptops donated so we could help them write a resume.
Yeah, there would be a lot of creativity in advocacy itself, right?
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
A problem and to go, okay, what do we need to do to fix this?
Absolutely. Even my campaign last year, there are very many stringent rules that, you have to abide by through the VEC as a starting point, and the way that you write or respond and dates and all that kind of stuff, that's boxed in. But I think too, in the way you engage your community and the way you social media posts and how you connect with people, there's such a wide variety of ways to do that. And I think for me, I live in the area that I ran my campaign. I grew up there. I was born 2 minutes down the road at Panch Hospital, for anyone else born at Panch in the northern suburbs.
Panch?
Oh, Panch.
Patch.
Yeah,
All right.
not there anymore. But, you know, I was very well grounded into my community already, very well embedded. And so for me, I wasn't getting to know community members. I was getting to know my neighbours. And that's how I started my approach, door knocking. You know, I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I'm your neighbour. I live down the road and I want to know what's happening for you because this is what's going on for me. And just really lent into that authentic, you know, connecting with people as we should be.
I was going to say, because obviously running a campaign like that, you're talking to all sorts of different people with different perspectives. And I think kind of coming back to what I do and what Trudi does is like we work with teams and organizations that can have competing ideas.
Yeah.
What role do you think like a creative approach to that has in driving, I guess, change or like more interesting discussion? Because I think there's a way of going, hey, we need to do this and here's where we need to go. But I think if you can bring some level of creativity to that conversation, it feels more inclusive, at least from my end. But I guess how do you consider that?
I think it's an interesting piece of work because I think my career in the mental health space and in working with people already, understanding the needs of various behaviours and understanding the needs of the whole of person was the foundation of what I did. So going out into community, I was really able to pick up I guess just what I saw as gaps, especially in local government, because we have, you know, that rubbish rates and roundabout mentality, right? You know, fix a pothole and everyone's happy, or infrastructure and planning, and we're so heavily embedded in a lot of that policy and making sure that, you know, we're responding in a way that people feel acknowledged. But I think what I found during my campaign as well is that there was just people just disenfranchised in general from politics. And for me, I already knew that going into it. And I think when I spoke to people, there was that sentiment there. And so knowing what I know in my work, I kind of lent into the fact that, well, we can do more. And people don't necessarily see well-being as infrastructure or something to build on. That's the heartbeat of our community. If our people aren't well, what's the point of fixing a pothole? You know, so I've come in with a very different perspective from everybody else. So for me, you know, embedding co-design and co-location of services that we can communicate with federal and state and close that gap and that grey area that exists for people receiving support from services. Yes, we have our maternal child health nurses and we have our GPs and youth services, but what if we co-located services that were state-based? What if we allocated some services to local government, even 1% of what is such a big pool of money, because alone we're not resourced enough to be able to lean in and do that work. The data's there. Loneliness, mental health, sedentary lifestyles, anxiety, our young people, our ageing demographics, I mean, our carers. A lot of people don't even know that they're a carer. They just go out there and help the person they love. I guess to answer your question, and I very passionately so, am really speaking to this in my role because there's so much more we can do. Knowing what data is out there, knowing what reports have come back from productivity commissions and the Royal Commission to Mental Health. We really do need to start talking about mental health alongside infrastructure that exists around our sporting clubs and what we generally would provide support and funding for. I think we really are in a space as progressive as we are to be able to pursue that more and really embed more services for our community.
Do you think, just listening to you talk, when you talk about, okay, we need more co-design, we need more ideas, we need more solutions, I mean, that all stems from a base of creativity, right? Really,
Absolutely.
if you're looking at new ways to solve old problems, you need creative thought. But in tension to that, politics feels like such a rigid, policy-driven career that it doesn't tend to, not always, because you're an example here with us, but doesn't tend to draw creative people into its realm and its sphere. Do you think that perhaps every council needs a creativity department or something? Like, do you think there's a PR problem around that? How do we get more creatives involved in in that? Because it sounds like that's sort of what's needed.
Yeah.
Interesting perspective. And I think alongside what your first point was around being creative, I think we also need people with the lived experience to guide and lead a lot of that work with co-design because we don't always know and we don't always have the answer, right? So bureaucracy in governments, we look at our data, we look at our policies, we speak amongst us as a council group, but we don't have the answers. We make the final decision, but we need to be leaning into that creativity around community forums and engaging those services that are doing that frontline work that know, asking them, thought bubbling it, putting it out there. We're starting to do that a bit more now, and I've asked for that around what we're doing at Darebin. And bringing every player together and saying, what do you do? What are the challenges? And how can we maybe work together a bit more? So I'm proud of that, and I'm really looking forward to unpacking what that looks like. But I think too, the other element in is that one term finishes, another one starts. People maybe get re-elected, others don't. So you're constantly chasing a wave of change, ideas, whether that be party, whether that be dynamics, whether that be interests, whether that be passions, whether that be if there's even enough money. The question mark is always around where does the money end, right? And what do we actually have to be able to embed some really positive change? And that's guided by, for us, it's 9 people that make that decision at the end of the day, but this is why I'm pushing for community to come in and join the conversation. Sometimes, councils will find the same kind of people coming forward and fighting for what's right, and that's great, and I love that, but I want to see more people come through the doors. I want to hear from our First Nations people. I want to hear from our youth. I want to hear from our creatives. I want to hear from those in the mental health space. I want to hear more than who we generally would fund as a council, as a norm across Victoria, across the states, across Australia, right? We need to open that box up, and I think creativity starts within the council, absolutely, but I think too we need to let people know that it's safe to pursue us and have those conversations, because let's be honest, if you listen to a council meeting, you're probably not off half an hour in.
Oh, tried once.
I mean, the language alone, is not really that inviting. Or for, Mary down the street who's migrated from another country, has 2 children, has a lot going on, she's not going to listen in, and she's really going to struggle to also understand. And I think we've got to be better at that, because we're not inviting those conversations. We're not equipped to invite those conversations, I don't think. And I've observed it and I know it, and it's a bigger conversation. It's a shifting culture completely.
And it's very intimidating. When I was a
100%.
teenager, I won a citizenship award from Bronwyn Bishop,
Oh,
if you don't mind. And she shook my hand and she told me, thank you very much.
yes.
Where was that thing about modesty and humbleness? And she said to me, you should get into politics. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'll look at politics. No, it was so intimidating. And I just thought, I can't wake up and voluntarily go to this every day.
Yeah.
So I went backpacking around the world.
So you're an author, which I think is amazing. And I think a lot of people have aspirations of writing and things. But from what I've read, this is a children's book, but it started from a lot of the advocacy work you were pursuing at the time. Is that right?
Yeah, it did actually. So I was a partner of a veteran, and he died by suicide. And being in the mental health space, I was not somebody who was going to let that go. And I was his carer. And for me, the systemic structure in the way DVA and our Australian government transitioned them wasn't great. So I spent a lot of my years after he passed advocating for that reform, and we won eventually. We got a Royal Commission into veteran suicide, and that's now being enacted. So during that time though, it was really hard. It was hard to continue to work full time and be in the mental health space. It was hard because every voice after my story, alongside my partners, people came forward and they said that was me, so I helped them. And I continued to do that work, and I just needed an out. I needed something that was mine. I needed something that I could pursue to give other people hope and healing. And I'd written the book, and my partner had seen it and had read it. And so I just felt like it was a closure piece, a grief piece, and an opportunity to help people on their journey, especially our children. I'd worked in what is now DHHS in child protection. I'd worked in the prison system, and I just saw our little children never really were able to express their emotions in a creative way or in a way that felt safe to them. Sitting in a therapeutic room was never how I did my counselling. My counselling was on a basketball court or at the drive-through at Macca's. That's where I had my sessions. So I really lent into that, and it was a mindful story to help them communicate their emotions with some activities at the back, and it doubled as a colouring book. So I really focused on that, and part of it was just before lockdown. So I luckily had it launched, and Trudi and her little family came, and it was it was a beautiful launch. And I think in pursuing that, I found myself, and I think every author pursues a journey within as well. And it was really healing. And what a lot of people don't know is Jesse wanted to be a primary school teacher. So it was a bit of an ode to him as well.
Yeah. I think it's such a beautiful story, and thank you for sharing it. But I also think like that the act of creatively expressing something, grief, pain, whatever it is such a therapeutic process, because you can sometimes, just talking about it, sharing it that way is difficult, but being able to, through some other medium, express that, I think is really cool. What's been the reception to the book like from families and people versus, others that you've heard from?
Yeah. I launched it in 2019. So it had a good year and real solid response, and a lot of psychological based kind of services and organisations working with children received it well, and a lot of the big bookstores and so on. And then we had lockdown. We were locked down for a few years. So I then had mothers and grandmas and so many people reach out to me, and I actually really got to connect with the people that purchased my book. So it became what was initially marketing and putting it out there and having a launch and putting it in all the big bookstores, and to actually, once all the noise was gone and working from home every day, reading personal emails and sentiments of how the books help their young one that they love and they work with or live with. And it was really humbling, but also for me, it's just, I don't know that we always get to just sit and be present to see how my creativity helped somebody else in that way. So, yeah.
Do you think you find opportunities to utilise creativity within what you do? Because when you look at your pathway, it's not necessarily a creative path, and yet you almost like you find ways to inject creativity in it.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, and I think when you approached me to do this, I really did reflect on, I guess, the path I've chosen in life, because it's always been how I help people heal. It's always been about how do I help people on a greater level, and I guess that was always the journey. And so I pursued that, but against the grain, against the norm, I'd say, because a big part of me is creative and, really enjoys embedding life into things that are not necessarily linear, right? So I think I really like pursuing things that are a little bit off the cuff and doing them in a way that, for me, maybe it's because I'm a bit of an empath and very aware and perceptive, and maybe I just pick up on cues as well. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. I've never really gone the linear straight line to creativity, but it's there, and I think I seek it out too, because I want that for myself. My work and everything I do is really heavy at times, so I need that outlet. And it allows me to continue to do my work and to help people, because, it's a short road to burnout if you don't.
Yeah. We were talking before about how I push the edges. I don't break them, but I push them, and about how Matt loves to find the unexpected connections of things. And it almost feels like there is a similar vein that almost creativity does come in these sort of edges of things.
Yeah.
Like a little rebellious edge. Would
Well,
you say creativity is rebellious?
Yeah. And I think it's the unique perspective that can shine a light on something, right? So I think we've spoken about this on a previous podcast where one of my boys' favorite books is Bont and the Big Secret. We love football. And the story is ostensibly about a little boy who kicks a football, breaks Nana's favorite gnome, lies about it. And then through her sharing, she's like, it's okay, just tell the truth. Like, it's this beautiful message. But if I said to my boys, hey guys, don't lie and make sure you tell the truth, it's not going to land as well as it is through a story with characters and empathy and stuff. And I think like creativity, storytelling, you know, whether it's sharing through books or films or music or whatever it is, that it's the different angle and the into something that the human, you know, experience is there.
Yeah.
But it's just a different way of sharing a version of that people then get access to and can relate to. And I think, you know, one of the notes you sent through was about how play isn't childish, play is human, and humanity's the kind of the thing we're all seeking. Yeah. Like, I love that you're in a traditionally uncreative space, yet you're striving to pursue that to try and bring some humanity back to the process, which ultimately is about serving humanity. Like, I think that's just a really great approach to it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's why I was elected, really, right? So, I mean, I can't be anyone else but myself, and I find a way to fit in that role, I guess, but with always making sure that other people's voices and their advocacy is at the center of my decision making. But you made a good point about your son, and I think, you know, we can lead people to a conversation and to thinking, but to make their own choice, we can't tell them. So it's really important that, you know, when I'm on this, I'm in this space where I'm an advocate for my local community, but I'm also helping people to come along the journey with me and teaching them how to do the same, whether it's for their community group, for their family, for something that's just happening in their street. I give them the tools and resources to make sure that they know they can do this in the future too, because a lot of people don't have the toolbox to pursue that, or they think it's too hard, or they don't necessarily understand because the language is just so blah. So I think there's an education piece there that we also need to be really aware of in making sure that people know how to pursue their rights and their own needs in this space.
Almost like if somebody would write a book, a creative book that helps people understand politics.
Oh,
If only we knew a very creative,
Trudy, I've got one lifetime. There's a lot going on. But maybe.
Put
Who
it in your
knows?
think tank.
Just put it in,
knows?
just prompt AI
Yeah,
and spit out
Oh,
a
God, AI. Gone are the days where you used to write your rough draft at uni. I mean, I was a floppy disk generation, guys. I went to uni and, you know, I got the books from the library and I stamped them out and returned them back. I mean, gosh, it's such a different generation. I love it. Let's not go there. But yeah, I'm very old school.
I had a thought the other day, I'm left-handed, and I had a thought that the smudge that I always used to come home with from school, from writing in pen and going across the ink, my son will probably never experience that.
That's right.
That's gone. Couldn't get it off days.
While we're talking about this,
Go
I
on.
realised, so my oldest is 5, and I'm like, he may never learn to drive a car. Like, there could be a world in which autonomous vehicles take over, and by the time he gets to 16, he may never need to learn how to drive a car. And I was like, oh my gosh, like 11 years away is not that far away, but it's also technology. Like, anyway, sorry,
on tech,
tangent.
liquid paper might be phasing out then.
Liquid paper? Does it even exist anymore? Who's ever heard of liquid paper
Who
these
writes
days?
on paper these days?
Who
God.
writes on paper?
That's true. That's true. It's all these little industries that are getting taken away because of
that's
the little
that you never would have thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we better do something about that
Yeah.
creatively.
Hey, Trudy, I think there's a book in that.
Okay.
It's just going to be an e-book. You can't print it on
Yeah,
paper.
that's
because
right.
paper
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
exist
yeah.
anymore.
I'll have
to
one
write
done
it
by
for
the end of the
you.
episode, actually. Let's put it into chat. Write me a book on.
I think coming back to, I guess, creativity and teams, right? So obviously we've talked a lot about the community you're serving and working with. But how do you, I guess, manage teams and people that have, ideally you're all working towards the same goal. How do you bring creativity into that process?
Look, people may, assume that just because we're from political parties and we all hold different values and different beliefs that, we need to not get along, but actually we have dinners together, most weeks, and we talk about our weekends, and we get along. And I think it's about leaning into that human perspective, as you say, and it's okay to have a point of difference, but we can negotiate and agree somewhere in between that makes it okay for all of us. And I think that's the fine art of navigating that.
I think there's something. I remember once the Queen had done something, and my friend was like, "Oh, she was really off today. She wasn't on." And I was like, "Well, maybe she has a headache.
Yeah,
like maybe she has period pain.
Yeah,
maybe she didn't sleep well. Like, we sometimes forget that these." People that we sort of look to are actually just human first. They go home, they have fights with their siblings, they have, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
Yeah, we shop at the local market, we do and I think there's such an expectation to have to be a certain way and I think when I was first elected, I remember, driving out of my street on the way to the market, it's Saturday, I've been to the gym and, I put my music up, and as soon as I was elected, I thought, oh, can I do that anymore? Are people going to judge me because I'm listening to old school R&B hits back in the day that just used to, get me going for the weekend?
There goes Connie with her floppy disk.
Right? Oh my gosh. So record player actually, Trudi.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's too progressive. But I started questioning myself. I'm like, hang on. Just because you're doing this job, you're still like everyone else. Nothing has changed, So yeah, I really had to check myself a bit. Yeah.
I think one thing I've sort of struggled with, so I, for your benefit, started my business 14 years ago when I was 21.
Oh,
and
well done.
Thank you. Actually, that's why I'm bringing it up, just for praise.
Yeah.
No, but when I started, I was just a practitioner that kind of got busier, so started freelancing. And then over the course of that, becoming a business owner and then a leader of people, one of the things was my own perception as a leader and kind of going, well, who do you have to be to lead? And one of the kind of great things that I sort of recognized pretty quickly, thankfully, was that if I changed who I was, it lost the whole point of how it got to that point in the first place.
Absolutely.
And I think that, the vulnerability and the humanity and the authenticity of who you are and what you go, or how you go about it is the thing that makes your work, meaningful to a lot of people. I imagine that's very difficult to try and maintain in a very public-facing role. But I guess, how do you try and navigate that? You mentioned, you've sort of checked yourself a little bit, but have you found a good balance in that now?
Yeah, look, and I think I'm finding that travel helps. Making sure I have some brain breaks in between it all, because it does. It gets busy, and I think across Australia, June 30th was budget time, and so for us, that's a big chunk of work, alongside being inducted and learning these whole new things and terms you've never heard of, and then being appointed in this role. So the first 6 months was a lot. So making sure I set that boundary. And listen, I'm 43. I only learnt what boundaries were in the last few years, and that's big for me. Being in mental health, I taught that. But it gets harder the more passionate you are about something, the more driven you are, the more you progress. It gets harder to set those boundaries, whether it be time, whether it be passion projects, whether it be, certain conversations that you have with people. I've really had to look within, and someone told me a long time ago, if you can't wake up every day and love what you do, you need to pivot. And so for me, I've over the years pivoted away from what was typically your 9 to 5 over the past 20 years. And I think lockdown really made me question everything. I also lost 6 people in the course of 5 years. That was huge. That was a massive hit to the system. I'm getting older. I'm wanting to be a mum. I'm wanting to have children. I'm wanting to start my own personal goals, but my focus has been everyone else and everything else for most of my life. So Once Upon a Feeling was that first real, this is yours. This is what you're doing for you. This is one of those bucket list things that you've not yet really ticked the box on. And so since then, I think it's really enticed me to unpack that. And so I make sure now that, I have my private time, and whether it's traveling, whether it's pursuing another hobby. I'm looking into Tai Chi at the moment, and
Tai Chi.
yeah,
Yes.
that energy release, and swimming and cooking, and traveling and eating as I hike up mountains at 40-degree heat. But yeah, I think you've just got that balance will come. And I think I'm starting to get that down pat. But yeah, I'm really mindful of what I let in now as well. I think protecting your peace is so important, and things don't always need to be responded to straight away. Like everyone, they have a 9-to-5 job or whatever hours they work, and they clock off. When your email and phone numbers on a website and you're just available 24/7 to people, you've got to still make those decisions to say, hey, I'll deal with this tomorrow. I'll respond when I can, and yeah.
And also there's this sort of thing about politicians working for the people. I have a friend of mine who works for an office, a guy who's in politics. And she was like, people feel like because they are part of the system that is the system, that they can just ring up and like let loose on stuff and have no shame and, just like express their creativity however they want it.
Yeah. Mediation plays a huge role in a lot of this as well. There are always people that come to you at the end of the line. They've been disgruntled for some time, or they've not had their voice heard, or they've, been left to the wayside in getting a response or something that's just really important to their family. So for me, it's letting the person speak. I think that listening is 90% of it. The action and the outcome will come. They know that. They've got you on the phone, or they've got you face to face. But making sure they feel heard, valued, and acknowledged, doesn't matter what role you're in, doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what you're doing. Giving someone that opportunity and that time is critical. And if you can get that right, the rest follows, So
heard and valued, yeah.
Yeah.
Just make someone feel heard and valued, it seems.
As we kind of look to wrap this up, my last question is really like, I guess like a good tip or piece of advice where, we probably have a lot of people listening to this that are in organizations or it's a sort of a pretty dull and dry environment, but are looking to kind of challenge that or bring some creativity to it. What would be your one piece of advice that you'd say, here's how you can kind of generate some of that creative spark in your workplace?
Yeah. I think for me, it's getting to know your people. Getting to know who's in your team, what their interests are, what their passions are, and just really being able to connect again on that human level, right? We're all there to do a job, but it doesn't always have to be mundane and intense. We can always lean into a bit of play or something a little bit creative or different that isn't in the 9-to-5, whether it's you go out for lunch and you do something a bit different, or, I created a Zen den in my last job. There was a spare room out the back when you entered off the elevator, and I was like, oh, that's just storage and cupboard space. How cool would it be if we had a meditation zone and dim the lights and people couldn't talk in there, they could read. You're coming off being a therapist and speaking to people with really heavy stuff. What are we doing for our people? So we were running Tai Chi classes out there at lunch for people. We were having bingo sessions.
In your Zen den?
Yeah, I mean,
bingo in the Zen den.
Once a month,
I'm demanding that for season 4.
And, it was a team of about 100 people. So
you had 100 people doing Tai Chi in a Zen den.
Well, not 100 at the – you had to sign in, Trudi. There's a system. It's not the biggest of spaces. OH&S if we start doing that, mate, knocking off arms and legs.
Too creative.
Too creative. Back
push the
in.
edges. Push the edges and come back. Yep.
But, we alternated because everyone had a passion or a skill or an interest, and whoever, wanted to put their hand up, or they put on the whiteboard, and then they came up the following week with whatever people wanted to go and join at the lunch break. So it was really cool. I loved that. But I think, thinking a bit more innovatively and outside the box, and making sure that everyone's well when they do their work. Because if you're not, we know the outcome, right? We know how it impacts quality. We know how it impacts, retention and all those things that really, make it hard to get up every day and do what you love. So
I've just spoken at the International Wellbeing Institute Global Summit
Amazing.
And they certify
So I'm
organisations.
just going to pick up that name you dropped.
You thought Bronwyn Bishop was good. Now I'm
yeah.
leveling
Oh,
up.
yeah. She's going to come for my job.
Yeah. So they go around and they certify organisations and residencies for wellness, like holistic wellness. So they look at everything. I think there's
Love
12 certifications, everything from air quality to food to communication to ergonomics, everything. And Australia is very good in a lot of areas, but where we are really bad is on an auditory field. So we're not good at managing our sound in our organisations.
The sensory-based experience.
Sensory-based
Yeah.
experience. Very interesting.
Huge.
Just wanted to drop that in there.
Yeah, so I'll pick it up for you again.
Yeah.
But it was really fascinating. There's heaps
Yeah.
of data.
Yeah.
Go and check them out. International Wellbeing Institute.
I will do.
They're excellent. They're brilliant. And they're keeping us all safe and happy.
Yeah.
Connie, just Connie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in and consulting with us.
Yeah.
It's been
I have
enjoy.
loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. How do we end this now?
I don't know.
Ciao.
Done.
Buongiorno.